Hi, I'm Matt. I'm a general contractor. In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace an electric water heater. I'll cover removing the old tank, recommended accessories, and installing a new water heater. Working with an electric water heater can be intimidating, but with the proper steps and guidance, you can tackle this project yourself. Some states and communities may require a permit or qualified professional to perform the service. Always follow your codes and check for any updates. And if you have a gas water heater, it's best to leave those repairs to a pro. If you need help with any type of water heater project, Lowe's has independent installers ready to help you get the job done. It's a good idea to check your home's water pressure with a pressure gauge on a spigot. 50 to 60 psi is recommended by some water heater manufacturers. You can control it with a pressure regulator valve. Install it following the manufacturer's directions. To remove the old water heater, I've turned off the electricity at the circuit breaker. I'm going to test to make sure that the power is off at the unit and remove the cover. I'll double check the lines, making sure the power is off, and remove the wire nuts. So now that the power is unhooked, I'm going to drain this tank out. I've opened a faucet on hot and let it run until it's cool. So I'm going to attach my water line to the low end spigot or main drain for the hot water heater. Now I'll shut off the cold water supply to the water heater. And I'm going to open the valve up with a flathead screwdriver. Tank is draining out now. You can see that the water is flowing. We're going to give it a few minutes and let it drain all the way down before we unhook everything. Now that our tank's drained out, we're really ready to shut the valve off. I'm going to close the valve and unhook the hose. Now I'm going to cut the water lines just above the valves. And the tank's ready to be removed. All right, so before we install our hot water heater, we've put in this drain pan. This drain pan comes with a PVC drain port, but we're gonna swap it out for a CPVC. This is a pretty easy swap. Just threads right on. I'm gonna set my drain pan up and place all of my connections approximately where they're gonna be located. And then I'll dry fit my pipes by measuring and cutting them in place. Before I primer and glue them. You'll notice that we set the hot water heater in approximately the same location. That way our electrical and our plumbing nipples will land in the right locations. So now we're going to set up the TMP, or temperature and pressure relief valve. This is designed to be able to blow off any extra pressure that builds up on the top of the tank if the temperature gets too high and the pressure needs to relieve before the tank ruptures or explodes. There's two materials we can use. One is copper, but if you use copper, you're gonna have to cut it to length and use an additional fitting. We're gonna use a pre-made piece. It already has the end on it, so we're gonna take this piece and set the top down into the bottom. I want it to end up at approximately 4 inches above the ground. So I'll use my hand as a measuring device, then I'll make my cut to the bottom of my hand. Now that it's cut off and I can see that it's approximately 4 inches above the ground, I'm going to put some Teflon tape around the top. After 2 to 3 passes around with the Teflon tape, put a little bit of pipe dope on, staying away from the very top of my threads. Now I'll install, hand tighten only. Now we're ready to hook up our supply lines and our hot water line. This tank comes with dielectric nipples with a non-metallic lining. This helps prevent corrosion from dissimilar metals. So the first thing I'm going to install on the supply line is this leak shield water shutoff valve. It's an automatic shutoff valve, that'll stop the flow of any water to the hot water heater if it detects a leak down on the floor. I'll start by pulling the release pin and removing the T. Set the electronic piece aside. For all the threads on the fittings, I'm going to apply plumber's tape and thread sealant. Now that that's done, screw it on. I'll get a pair of adjustable pliers and tighten it up. Get my T ready and follow the same procedure. So next we're going to install our thermal expansion tank. This tank helps keep the water pressure consistent into the hot water heater. It also helps eliminate water hammering, which is the noise caused in the pipes as the air expands while the water is heated. We're going to check the tank. It's at about 45 psi. Since our house tested at 60, we're going to want to add some air. To increase pressure, use a manual pump until the tank pressure matches the house pressure. Then thread the tank onto the T. And then I'll finish the last half to 3/4 turn with the wrench. Now that that's set up, I'm going to install this connection nipple from our T to be able to connect our flexible hose. So now we're ready to install this pre-made water supply line. It's got a rubber gasket on the inside of it, so we won't need to Teflon tape or pipe dope this connection. The top has a shark bite fitting and a shutoff valve. So we'll start threading that on. I'll bend the flex hose up to check the PEX length. If you need to cut the PEX, use a PEX cutter for a clean cut. For the shark bite fitting, I'll prep the PEX with a deburring tool. Spin it on the pipe 10 times. The tool can also be used as a gauge to mark the fitting depth. Now I'll push the shark bite onto the PEX to meet the mark. I'll install the flex hose on the hot water side the same way as the cold side. Now that our water lines are hooked up, we're ready to install this water shutoff valve. We're going to slip it back over top of the T, put the quick connect in place, make sure it's on, and then feed the wire around to the control panel on the side of the hot water heater. I have shut this valve, opened up the main, and opened up a faucet to make sure that we have pass-through. We're ready to open this valve and let some water go into the tank. We're going to crack it open nice and easy and let the water run. Now as the water's filling up the tank, we're going to check all our connections and make sure there's no leaks. Everything looks really good here, so we're going to proceed to hooking up the electric and firing up the unit. First thing we're going to do is make sure that the power is still off from the panel. We're all good here, so we'll pop these caps off. Now we're going to remove this plate. And take our old conduit sleeve off. All right, now that the old conduit's off, I'm just going to wrap a little bit of electrical tape around the end to make sure that it passes through the new conduit easily. Pop this connection nut off. Slide the plate on, tighten our connector up, nice and snug. Move our tape. Now that that nut's on, we're ready to reinstall the plate. And we're ready to put a loop end onto our ground. Make nice little candy cane end right there for your ground screw to go through. Now that those are nice and snug, we're going to connect our red and black wires, install our wire nuts, make sure that the wire nuts seated down below the top of the cover. Ready to swing our cover around. So now we're ready to turn the power on. Follow your manufacturer's operation instructions. It may take several hours to initially heat up the water. On this unit, after the initial startup cycle, use the temperature arrows to adjust the temperature. 120 degrees Fahrenheit is the recommended temperature. After a few hours, check the discharge pipe. If the pipe is dripping, that usually means the pressure is too high. You can adjust it at the pressure regulating valve. Also, if a faucet stops working after installation, take out the aerator and clean it. Then run the hot water to remove loose sediment. Replacing and maintaining a water heater may seem intimidating, but as long as you take it step by step, it's actually a pretty DIY friendly project that'll keep your home running smoothly for years to come. Thanks for watching. Let us know in the comments if you have any thoughts or questions about this project. And if you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe for more Lowe's how-to videos.